October is my favorite month of the year. Not because of all the spooky stuff, or the changing of the colors, or the falling of the leaves, or, the generally cooler temperatures. No. It's got nothing to do with that. It all has to do with the fact that I can make a stupid pun and talk about otters all month, and nobody can stop me. Welcome to October. So what's an otter? Sounds like a stupid question, but I'm going to answer it. Otters are all the mustelids that belong to the subfamily Lutrinae. Mustelids are things like minks, ferrets, badgers, weasels, and of course, otters. From everything that I've been able to find, the closest relatives of otters are badgers, so calling them water badgers is perfectly acceptable. There are currently 7 extant genus with a total of 13 species among them. Extant, for those of you who don't know, means that they are currently still alive in comparison to, extinct, gone. In the recent past, it would have been 14 species, but we don't talk about that. Alright? We don't talk about that. People are dumb, stupid, leave it at that. The genuses are Lutra, Lontra, Lutrigale, Terranura, Aeonyx, Hydrictis, and Enhydra. All otters live in or near water and have diets that largely consist of fish, mollusks, and generally anything that lives in the water. Otters first show up in the fossil records in the Miocene somewhere in the ballpark of 22 million years ago, with most of the current ones that we know showing up within the last 7 or so million years. There hasn't been a time on Earth that humans didn't have otters around. So let's go through what should rightfully be one of our closest friends. Starting with the genus Lutra, we have the Eurasian otter and the hairy-nosed otter. Lutra is the Latin word for otter. Yeah. The Eurasian otter is the classic otter, and it covers most of Europe and Asia in their native range. The hairy-nosed otter isn't quite as prominent, only living in small populations in Southeast Asia. The genus Lontra covers most of the species in North America and South America. The name Lontra comes from the Portuguese, and it's their word for otter. The North American river otter, the southern river otter, the neotropical river otter, and the marine otter. With the exception of the marine otter, all of these guys can be found in pretty much the same type of environment across the 2 continents. That is, largely small rivers, lakes, things along those lines. The marine otter, as its name suggests, are a coastal species and are probably the most elusive on the planet. Terranura only has 1 species, and it's the giant river otter. These are the largest otters, and they don't have that size for nothing. They're called the river jaguar by the natives of the regions that they inhabit. They're aggressive, territorial, and have been known to fight off both caiman and jaguars. Lutrigale also only has 1 species, the smooth-coated otter. They inhabit areas around India, Pakistan, and the Middle East. They have a subspecies known as Maxwell's otter, named after the author Gavin Maxwell. If you're not familiar with his work, his book Ring of Bright Water is all about him and his life with an otter that he found on a trip to the Middle East. Hydrictis is the genus of the spotted-necked otter in Africa. These otters are easily identified by the spotting on their necks, as their name suggests. They're fairly small, and if memory is serving me correctly, they're usually found in sub-Saharan Africa, in that small little band that's just between the desert and where the forest starts. Aeonyx contains 3 species: the African clawless, the Asian small-clawed, and the Congo clawless otter. Aeonyx means without claws. Most of them have very small or almost non-existent claws, and so that's where the genus gets its name from. The size difference in these otters is massive. The Asian small-clawed being the smallest otter, and the Congo clawless being the 3rd largest otter on the planet. And finally, we come to Enhydra. The only species within this genus is the sea otter. They are full of fun facts, from having pockets to having the highest density of fur of any animal on the planet. But the one that I like the most, it's the scientific name Enhydra lutra, literally translates to in-water otter. I want to say that again. In-water otter. So fun. Okay, So hopefully you now have a good understanding of what an otter is and the different species of otter that we have. There's a lot of information that I could go over about otters, like how they show up in mythology from all over the world. You have the Kushtaka from the Pacific Northwest. You have Ottober from the Norse mythologies. They're in association with the goddess Wadjet in Egypt. But I think there's more important things to talk about with them, largely conservation. Almost every species of otter are or have been listed as endangered, critically endangered, near extinct. All of this within the past 100 years, give or take. For example, the sea otters, they were hunted to near extinction just because of the fur trade. That glorious fur coat that they have. And we thought it looked really good on us. It's hard to say that, to be perfectly honest. The majority of species on this planet that have gone extinct have, within the past several hundred years, is purely because of us, and I don't want my favorites to be gone because of that either. But there is good news, alright? A lot of conservation efforts that have been going on have brought majority of these animals back from the brink. For example, the North American otter, at one point in time, had been listed as critically endangered, and all the way up until probably the early 90s, give or take, it was largely unseen throughout almost every riverway in North America. But due to our efforts on making sure that they're protected species, so on and so forth, all of that, we've been able to bring them back, which is really awesome. My home state of Texas, which has its own problems and own good things, that aside, for the longest time didn't have otter. But in just the past couple of years, they've been seen all throughout the Dallas area, as far south as Houston, even being near the oceans again. It's mind-boggling to see, and I hope it continues. The sea otter, which was mentioned earlier, is actually considered to be one of the greatest cases for conservation on that have occurred in history. Their numbers, once they were reduced, left it to where all the sea urchins could go in and destroy the kelp forest that they had lived in. But with the reintroduction efforts and the breeding programs that had gone on, introducing them back brought the sea urchin populations under control. And now the kelp forests, which are one of the largest areas for biodiversity in the Pacific Northwest, are flourishing. And it's all due to our conservation efforts and making sure that we actually keep them alive. So now that I've gotten through all of that, I hope you really enjoyed this small little primer into otters, my favorite animal on the planet. I plan to hopefully get some more videos going in specifics about not each of them, but a good majority of them as the month goes on. We'll see how this all turns out. I'm really bad at making videos in the first place. I've literally had one I've been sitting on trying to make for months. But, that's how things are. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that jazz, and I will see you next time.